So we're here ready to do our new podcast where we interview professionals, businesses, community organizations, and more.
But I thought we were to interview artists.
Whoa, yeah. Yeah, we're going to be interviewing all types of artists, musicians, poets, singers, dancers, painters, whatever your craft is. We welcome you to come to our podcast and tell us who you are, locally and abroad.
Or is it more about relationships and why those in love wear matching outfits?
Well, to each his own when it comes to outfits. We like to dress alike, of course. And it does matter how we look, both individually and as a couple. We represent each other, right?
Right. So, since you said that, shouldn't this really be about beauty?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to share some of my beauty tips, of course. I mean, that's what I do. Oh, yes, darling, because you do know that I am a Mary Kay consultant, and I've got to let them in on some of my secrets. Anyway, because when you look good, you feel good.
Speaking of look good, feel good, that reminds me that this is more about the vegan, plant-based lifestyle, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Plant-based living saved my life. Fighting diabetes, changing my lifestyle to the vegan lifestyle has really, really improved my health. And so we're going to show everybody how to eat right, tasty dishes that are good for you, and have some guests who can help us with those culinary arts.
That's what's up. So what about the reflections and encouragement of the day? Isn't that what it's really about?
I think at the end of the day, people are going to want to know, what is ChynaGroove? I'm China Doll.
I'm D-Groove.
And together, we are ChynaGroove. So we're here ready to do our new podcast where we interview professionals, businesses, community organizations, and more.
But I thought we were here to interview artists.
Whoa, yeah. Yeah, we're going to be interviewing all types of artists, musicians, poets, singers, dancers, painters. Whatever your craft is, we welcome you to come to our podcast and tell us who you are, locally and abroad.
Or is it more about relationships and why those in love wear matching outfits?
Well, to each his own when it comes to outfits. We like to dress alike, of course. And it does matter how we look, both individually and as a couple. We represent each other, right?
Right. So, since you said that, shouldn't this really be about beauty?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to share some of my beauty tips, of course. I mean, that's what I do. Oh, yes, darling, because you do know that I am a Mary Kay consultant, and I've got to let them in on some of my secrets. Anyway, you know, because when you look good, you feel good.
Speaking of look good, feel good, that reminds me that this is more about the vegan, plant-based lifestyle, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Plant-based living saved my life. Fighting diabetes, you know, changing my lifestyle to the vegan lifestyle has really, really improved my health. And so we're going to show everybody how to eat right, tasty dishes that are good for you, and have some guests who can help us with those culinary arts.
That's what's up. So what about the reflections and encouragement of the day? Isn't that what it's really about?
I think at the end of the day, people are going to want to know, what is ChynaGroove? I'm China Doll.
I'm D-Groove.
And together, we are ChynaGroove.
Who we are, that's who we are.
That's
who
us.
we are, that's
That's
who
us.
we are. Who we bars, who we are. We in
Once
the
again,
studio.
it's on another Saturday night.
Saturday.
Or should I say Saturday evening to be proper?
Saturday, it's a Saturday.
It might be cold, it might be rainy, it might be snowy, but it's a Saturday, so it's time for another showy. Oh,
Bars. Or not.
or not. Oh, ouch.
We in the house though. Oh,
I have to give myself some applause. It was either that or the drum roll. Anyway, once again, it's a 6:30 and change, actually 6:36 on another Saturday evening. That must mean you're in tune to the ChynaGroove podcast. And of course, I'm sitting across from the lovely, the magnificent, the wonderful, the queen herself, Miss Camilla China Doll Collins.
and I am so blessed to be sitting across from the curly-haired, tech-savvy, most debonair husband that I could have ever been blessed to have, and that is Mr. Derek D. Groove Washington. And
So,
together
we
we
are
are ChynaGroove.
Yes. So how you doing tonight?
It's cold.
It's cold.
I'm well, thank the Lord.
Yes.
But
the
it's
Lord-
cold.
But it's cold.
It's cold.
It's been a long, busy day, but we have a very, very good show for you today. It's actually the very first live show of the new year for us.
Yes, it is, isn't it? I'm so excited.
So happy New Year, happy 24. That was a good show, by the way. Anyway,
Two, fort.
that went ahead way over people's heads, I'm sure. But
Kiefer
anyway.
Sutherland, I think, I don't know.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Anyway,
Our sound effects are horrible.
there's a reason why I brought that show up, actually.
Segway.
Segue.
How you do it?
How you do it? I don't know. How do I do it? It's been a while. It's been a long time. No, it hasn't been that long.
Shameless plugs.
Shameless plug.
I'm excited tonight. I'm so excited tonight because our guest tonight is so amazing, so powerful, so innovative in her way of impacting the community, and so just so relatable. One of the realest people I've met in this town since I've been here, and I've been here 15 years, but you want to do the introduction of our luxurious
No,
guest?
go right ahead. You were doing very well.
She, oh my goodness. We can't say enough about our guest tonight. She is the proprietor of Sanford Yoga and Community Center. She is a veteran. She is an advocate for veterans and people who have sustained abuse in veteranship, if that's a word. She is also a leader in our community in providing a safe space for those who are in need of therapy by way of yoga and mindfulness. And I just can't say enough. I want to let her fill you in on who she is. We like to introduce to some.
You forgot one very important attribute.
I didn't forget. What did I forget?
She is a professional rabble rouser.
Oh, that word. Yes. We will talk about that.
Make sure I work that in. A professional.
Professional.
I'm in the semi-pro leagues then, I guess.
She ain't never scared. Okay. Now,
Never.
rabble
ever.
rouser. I was going to get to that later on, but since
Okay,
you
my
said
bad.
it,
I took your thunder.
the professional rabble rouser, among other hats, our luxurious, fiery, red-headed Lindsay Knapp Esquire.
Thanks for having me.
Oh,
Thanks
no,
for having
thank you
me.
for being
Welcome,
here.
welcome. Thank you for accepting our invite.
Oh yeah, of course. You guys are fantastic.
Yes, indeed. I just, I don't want to go early, but later on, you're going to have to tell us who does your hair. Don't tell us now. Wait till that segment.
Got it.
Gosh, I'm loving it.
So now that we've rambled on about you, tell us a little about yourself.
Yes, I like my bio short and sweet. I'm a veteran and an attorney and a professional rabble rouser. But it kind of all came, I guess, by accident. I started out in the service, and when I got out, I always wanted to be an attorney, right? And so, prior to being in service, I had been helping a lot of folks who experience like sexual assault and domestic violence, and I had been in that field for about 20 some years, and like working through my own trauma and trying to like help myself while trying to help other people, and that kind of just led me down this path of when I see something wrong, it just really kind of irritates me, and so it's
Same.
finding that when you find that, it's like, what do you do? And there's this quote that I kind of try to live by, and it goes to the effect of, I always wondered why somebody didn't do something about that, and then I realized I was somebody,
Whoa, that's good.
and so I would have that up on my desk every day, and I'd always be like, why not me? Like when I was going through law school, like I'm in the middle of 5 kids, from outside of Chicago. We're not, come from an affluent family or anything like that. But it was always like, why not me? And if somebody's not going to do something about this, then, well, I guess, why not me? And so then I'd have ended up dyeing the hair red because it just kind of fit the personality. It's like now they need to know I'm crazy out the gate,
Listen,
Now they know when they see me, and it's not a question.
don't play with them. Don't play with my Lindsay
Yeah.
now.
So that was a professional decision to go redhead.
It was.
Okay.
It was. I started just doing the ends, and then it just went. My brother was killed in December of 2022, and then when that happened, I just was like, you kind of realize if you didn't know how short life was, then you get a quick lesson real quick. And so then I just went. After that happened, I stayed blonde for another month or 2, and then that was it. And
Well, our
and then
condolences.
it just stuck. It just stuck, and so now I feel like it's a whole vibe.
Definitely a vibe.
It's a whole vibe, and I feel like it really suits my personality. And I'm sorry not to have my brother here anymore, but
Yeah.
he definitely is with me still, and is like, he's a crazy person himself. So
He would have been all for the red hair.
He would, and he was a ginger. I come from a family of gingers, so they. I this is a different kind of ginger, of course. This is like fire
That's
hydrant
cayenne.
red, but yeah, it's spicy.
I love it. And I mean that I didn't want to go into our segment, but I'm a professional beautician by trade.
Nice.
That's my day job. And so that's one of the things I know that you promote yoga and mindfulness for people dealing with stress. But one thing about being a beautician, I'm the therapist that doesn't get the psychiatrist pay.
Yeah,
right?
you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
So,
Somebody's
and-
got to listen to me while I'm sitting here.
But there is something therapeutic, not just about what we wear, but what we put on the inside of ourselves, the way that we move our bodies, the way that we adorn our bodies, even the color of your hair. It's a stop sign.
Yeah.
Don't play with me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's fun. It's beautiful,
Yeah.
and it's so fashionable. I love it. It's fabulous. Yeah. So, let's talk a little bit about your past. In the beginning, what led you to become a veteran? Would you say inspired you?
I really, if I'm being honest, like I joined the Army just to get outside of Chicago. Like it was not, it was not okay, you know, and it was just, life was really chaotic. And I just had to get out. So that's really why I joined. And then it was kind of just like, again, like, why not? Like, what's the worst that can happen? It's 4 years. Either if I don't like it, then that's it. I mean, I didn't like it, so I just did 4 years. But
Paid your dues.
yeah. You know, because, you know, in the middle of 5 kids, my parents had, you know, 4 girls and 1 boy. And so I was naive in the sense that, you know, my mom was very, very abusive, but my dad was like all but a saint. And so he all treated us, all of us girls, the same.
Yeah.
You know, so I never, you know, gender discrimination was kind of like a newer thing for me. When I hit the Army, I was like, oh, that's what this is.
What is this?
You know, and I didn't appreciate the bubble that my dad put us in while we were living at home. You know, so like even when we were out in the community getting jobs or doing this or that, people knew that we were his kids. You know,
Wow.
and that we weren't. You don't mess with his kids. You know, so we were able to move very freely in that way. But
Now, was he military as well?
he
or-
was not.
No. Okay.
He was not. He was a jeweler. So my family came over from Norway. So that kind of suits the hair, right? Like
Okay.
we're all just a bunch of crazy people, crazy and stubborn. And yeah, so they did that until my dad passed away in 2012. But yeah, so that led to that. That's why I kind of joined the military, just kind of.
And so, how old were you when you joined the service?
I was 20.
Okay, yeah.
So I went to
pretty
college first to try to get outside of Chicago, but it wasn't far enough. So September 11th happened, my freshman year of college.
Oh wow.
And so then I joined like ROTC, and that's like, you know, you're just pretending to be in the Army. You're not, you know, yeah. And so then I just, you know, decided when I graduated that I would just join, and I asked to be put overseas, and the military was happy to oblige.
Of course.
You know,
They do.
you know, like you put down your top 10 places, and all my, you know, my
You were
top
all
5 were overseas. I was
duty
like, send me
stations. Okay.
overseas. And they sent me to Germany, so I spent a tour in Germany. So that
You
wasn't
guys
so
have
bad.
2 things.
Oh,
in common.
nice.
I kind
Okay,
of sense,
all right, all right.
sense that. My father was in the Army.
Okay.
So back in the late 70s, yeah, from 77 to 79.
Okay.
We were stationed in Berlin.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's a time.
It is. I loved it over there. I remember a lot of things, but the one thing that I always think of, and the one thing that definitely stands out the most is, you know, you really got a true appreciation of what freedom was by living in Berlin. Because you know the story. You know, you go to the other side that's not free. And we could go in there on a bus. We stop at the checkpoint. Russian soldiers would get on. They would check our paperwork. We could go in, and everybody that's in there was looking at us like, wow, you're so lucky.
Yeah.
Because we could go and we could leave. They couldn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they could leave, but they risk getting shot at.
yeah.
You know, and it's definitely something that makes you appreciate freedom. It helps you to appreciate the sacrifices that the men and women in uniform make, because I mean, that's something very harsh it's literally right there that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
So when you were stationed in Germany, what was your I can't think of the technical phrase for it. What was your
Like my job.
your job?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I was.
I know there's a
It's all right. Yeah,
code
they call it
name for
MOS.
MOS.
I
that's
was.
what- yes.
I was a 25 Alpha, which is signal officer.
Okay.
So like how I explain it to people, it's like putting AT&T in the back of a Humvee and setting it up anywhere.
Oh, wow.
But I was an officer, so I just tell people I earned my PowerPoint Ranger tab. So like the officers do like a lot of weird stuff. So I had like a lot of additional duties. So I ran like an arms room, a CBRN room, which is like the chemical and biological room. I ran a DFAC. I ran a mail room. I had like a lot
All
of
the risky stuff.
yeah. Right. I had all of these like additional duties in addition to like being signal and doing this.
Wow.
But then also like as kind of like the token woman in the unit. Anytime somebody was like sexually assaulted, they would have them come see me.
Wow.
And so that's kind of where I started in that field professionally in the military. It was just as an additional duty because at that time there was no services for people who'd been sexually assaulted in the military. So they try to formalize those processes now, but then it was just kind of like. And so it's just me yelling at my boss, like, you can't stop that.
Yeah.
Like, like if we had like two soldiers that like got into like a domestic dispute, let's say,
Yeah.
I'd say something simple like, well, we got to separate them. Like it was co-ed barracks. I'm like, so we just got to move one person into another barracks.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to start, right? Like, while we're still trying to figure out like what happened,
and then work your way.
and we'd get a lot of pushback for that even. And I'm like, well, we don't know whose fault it is. I'm like, I don't care whose fault it is. I'm like, but they got to be separated, and then we'll figure it out, right? Like we'll investigate and do all the things, but I'm like, we got to do the safety first. And just like the very basics were kind of just
Sure.
over their heads.
So you've already answered my next question. It's literally like you read my mind because I was going to ask you how you got into a position to where you were an advocate for others. So that pretty much summed it up. So, let's fast forward. You spent 4 years in the military, in the Army. You're overseas and you came back to the States. Where was your first duty station?
And I just got out.
You got out?
Yeah.
Okay, so you were, okay. So you came back. So now you go full-fledged into advocacy or?
Yeah, more or less. So like when we were growing up, like my sister, of my three sisters, all of them had been sexually assaulted, like pretty savagely. And one in particular had been, like my oldest sister sold my youngest sister to pay like a drug debt. My oldest sister was like a drug dealer, and all that kind of craziness. So I had a lot of experience in the field before I got into the military of like what it's supposed to look like, like what kind of advocacy to provide. But then when I got out, we were just we're from Chicago, but we're in North Carolina now. But my husband and I were like not going back to Chicago. So we like threw a dart on a map, more or less. And we had never even been to Chicago, or I'm sorry, we'd never been to North Carolina when we decided to move here.
Really?
So we literally moved from Germany to North Carolina.
Wow.
But it was 2008. So, I mean, like when you're stationed overseas, I was stationed overseas for like about 4 years, and you kind of, you're really disconnected from what's happening in the States. So this was like during a time when like smartphones had just come out. So there was like a huge
shift.
Technology was just going crazy, but it wasn't in Europe, right? So like smartphones were available in the United States, but they weren't available in Germany yet. So like we had the Razor phone. I don't know if you remember that, but that was like the high tech gadget
in Germany,
in Germany at the time. And so we'd been seeing on the news about the recession and all that stuff, but it didn't hit because you just kind of taking the news. I take the news with a grain of salt to begin with, right? And so when you're overseas, you're really taking it with a grain of salt. Yeah. But when we got back, it was like a bucket of cold water. We couldn't get a job. It was just really challenging. When we initially moved to Durham, and I really enjoyed Durham because it reminded me a lot of Chicago, but warmer.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Not as cold, but it had like all the same like fun stuff, fun people, all the things. And then, but nobody was hiring, and I thought like I would be able to get a job. I'm like, I've got a college degree, I'm a veteran, I should be able to. But 2008, nobody was getting a job, right? Like, it was pretty hard. But then, so my husband ended up getting a job in Raleigh, and I ended up getting a job at Fort Liberty, formerly Bragg. And so we moved to Sanford, just kind of split the difference.
Made sense.
Yeah, and I actually started working at Liberty just as a secretary. So like with all my skills, and then I applied to go to law school, and then ended up going to law school at Central. Went to law school at night while I was working during the day in Fayetteville. So I drive to Durham, 2-hour drive, 3 days a week to go to law school.
Go get
for
it.
4 years. But I initially worked at Bragg as a secretary, and then I got recruited by Special Operations Command to be one of their first victim advocates in their sexual assault response program. And so then I got into professional advocacy with Special Operations for a time
Now,
while I was getting my law degree.
Now that brings up a very interesting point, because I read the Rolling Stone article.
Woo.
And I will tread lightly.
No, try to jump in both feet. I love talking about
Can
it.
I be the advocate here?
It's
If there's anything that makes you uncomfortable tonight,
You're good.
stop him anywhere.
because I don't want to be that gotcha type of person that asks those type of questions.
No,
But
please.
it's very interesting what you just said. They asked you to be an advocate for something that they really didn't want an advocate for.
Right.
It seems in my head anyway. Now I'm reading what I read out of that article and what I've heard as far as other similar cases. My father was career military. He was a master sergeant. He would have been in it until he retired at the highest rank. Unfortunately, he passed away when we moved back from Germany. But, you hear the stories, and then you hear about it. It sounds terrible, and then you don't hear about it because it quietly goes away. And for me to sit here and hear you say that they wanted you to do something that they really didn't want the result that you would probably arrive to, as far as finding out what happened in these cases, trying to hold somebody accountable, and then someone ultimately not being held accountable, and they just go on their way.
Right, because they hire you thinking that they can control you.
Yes.
Right, so they're not seeing this fiery redhead, right? Like they're seeing at the time a blonde and a woman. And if you're a woman and working for the service, whether you're a civilian or not, like you are just a woman.
She's a
Right.
pretty secretary.
Yeah.
She's a pretty secretary. Let's get her to do it.
Right. And so and even when I first started, there was like a lot of gaslighting. So my clients out the gate were being retaliated against for reporting, and I would bring them all my concerns and issues, and they would be like, well, Lindsay, that's not how we do things here, and so then the program was very, very new, right? And they hired me because they had to, though, right? So like the Army or the DOD said, we have to fill these slots. Mm-hmm. And so then, right, like I was probably just token, right? Like let me hire this woman to put she's seemingly, I'm sure they didn't know how spicy I was at all, right? But I look good on
They had
paper
no
for
clue.
sure, right? Like, they put me in this spot, and when they would gaslight me like that and be like, oh, that's not how we do things here. At first, I would just take it, right? I would be like, okay, let me go back and let me read these regulations again. Let me really dive into the subject matter. Maybe I'm not following it properly. How do we do things here? You know what I mean? And really try. And in special operations, they do things differently anyway. They basically it's a free for all. They do whatever they want. So over time, I'm starting to like really, press the envelope, and I'm in law school. So it's like I'm getting harder and harder for them to like push back on me. Cause I'm like, the math ain't mathin'. This is not how it's supposed to,
Exactly.
This is not how it's supposed to be. And I only lasted at USAC for about 4 years, cause then it all culminated with that Rolling Stones article. And even during that trial, that the victim in that case, the assault happened in 2016. The trial wasn't until 2018. But over those 2 years, we're still hoping that at the end of the day, justice might be served.
Yes.
Right. So even though like so many things had gone wrong, and we could see the cover up, we could see all the stuff, we were just hoping that maybe it didn't go all the way to the top. Right. And like maybe, there's some bad apples down here. So there was still like some hope, if you will, that maybe at the end of the day, we're going to get justice. And then when that didn't happen, that's when so the Rolling Stones article is about me writing a letter to the commanding general of Special Operations Command outlining everything, all of the corruption that I thought occurred in the case, right? So it's just like line by line. this happened on this date, this happened on this date. Why did this happen? So like one of the things that they did is the perpetrator was in Delta Force, and they declined to allow anybody else in Delta Force to be interviewed by the local police. Right. So it's like, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you allow them to be interviewed so that way justice could be served? Why were you hindering, law enforcement investigation? Why?
It's touchy.
So then when that happened, I sent the letter thinking that at the time, I actually didn't think that they were going to do anything. I was mostly sending it for my soul so I could, do what I could from the position I was at. And I thought maybe one of two things was going to happen. Either nothing would happen, or the general would reply and say, "Thanks, Lindsay, we'll look into it." And then I would never hear anything again.
Right.
But what they did is they sent me on administrative leave. And then for 2 years, they had me on administrative leave before they fired me. Well, because they were hoping I would quit.
Yeah.
But I was like, you're gonna have to fire me. I'm like, you're just gonna have to fire me, because what they said is that with that letter that I sent to the commanding general, they said that was classified information. I was like, the hell it was.
So at this point,
wait a
I just got to ask this question because just to double back to the why not me.
Yeah.
How do you compute? Is that the right word? How do you digest? How do you come to what we would like to say a come to Jesus moment about why not me? Like, for real? Like, what was your process when you realized what you were facing and the real truth about who you are and your standards and what you believe in and facing a giant?
Yeah. I mean, ignorance is bliss sometimes, and so I think the only way I was able to do it was I don't want to say being blissfully unaware, because I was aware, but I was just lying to myself about it, right? So I'm just like being hyper focused on like, this is not okay, what's the next move? This is not okay, what's the next move? And not really thinking about the gravity of how big it is, which is how I believe I became to be like the professional rabble rouser, because if you really start to think about the gravity of any of this or any of the things that I do even now, like you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And so somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah. And then I love to read. So I would read. I'm like, okay, there's somebody who has done something big, and how have they done it? So it's like reading like Dr. King's autobiography, reading Mahatma Gandhi, reading Nelson Mandela's autobiography. Like, this is like, Lindsay Knapp is not the first person that has had a challenge in her life, right?
You had to stand up and stand on business.
So like, how did everybody else do it? And then like, how did they find like the intestinal fortitude to do it
To continue.
Right, because it's
Yes.
yeah, and so part of it I think is also I'm stubborn. Some people have got some maybe toxic traits. My toxic trait is that I'm stubborn as all get out, and the Lord is putting that to good use.
Definitely relate to that.
That's balance.
I've heard that stubborn word used.
I wouldn't say
many times.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a toxic trait. It's a misunderstood trait.
Yeah. No. It's a toxic trait to those who want to keep you from being stubborn. Wow.
Yeah, the fortitude that just kudos to you for the fortitude that you have, and the importance of knowing who you are and what your mission is in this life is so key to really surviving and keeping your head on straight. We talk about it all the time. Know yourself, know what you're capable of. If you find that you would come across another young person who would be an advocate in this position and they will come to you, what would be your advice to them?
I actually talk people out of it. I mean, only because this is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that this is something like they may think it's glamorous. You know what I mean? Or especially if like they're watching me on TV or all this other stuff. I'm like, you got to understand the struggle, like even the daily struggle like I've wanted to kill myself, right? And on more than one occasion, and it's just like, how do you wrestle with your own PTSD and your own all of this? But then for the people that get through my first wave of strategy of telling them not to do it, the next thing I tell them is I'm like, you got a therapist? I'm like, get a therapist. I'm like, you don't think you need one? I said, you get one now, I'm like, start talking to them now. I'm like, you may not think you're broken, but you're about to be, because you're about to meet everybody on the worst day of their life. Right? Like when I talk to like a victim of sexual assault, like that, I'm not meeting them on their best day.
Right.
Like I'm meeting them on their worst day. But for me, I love them so much. Like I see what they're about to become. And I can see that though, because I did the work in myself. So I always tell people, like, I can only do this because I did the work. Because you don't change the world. You actually can't change the world. You can only change yourself. And then the world actually bends with you. So every day I'm just like, what are my rough edges? And then I change those, and then everything else changes. And so I do think about the problem, like, holistically and, from like a macro perspective and high level, but the nitty gritty of the work is in yourself, right? Like, how do I stay even and level, and what does that look like? And then once you've done that, right? So there's like I'm in the spotlight now, but when I'm not, or when I wasn't, I'm just sitting in the bed crying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think it's important, I guess, that people know that it's not all like,
Glitz and
glam. Like good looking nails, good looking hair, and, kicking in the doors. It's a whole lot of work. It's a whole lot of stuff. Like I went on this PTSD retreat for veterans some years back, and and I only went because my friend was about to like start taking over it, and she wanted me to try it out, to like give feedback, right? Like she didn't think I needed help, but I was like ready to end it. And I was like, all right, well, I'll wait, because I got a retreat date.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like I didn't sign up for it,
Divine intervention.
But I was like, all right, I'll just wait. And then I went to it, and then it was like, okay, got it. And then that's how I kind of like how yoga threaded into all of this. Because then I started doing yoga after that, and learning how to process trauma through the body, because you can't just process trauma through the mind. You have to process it through the body. And if you can't process it through the mind, and you can actually even process all your trauma through the body without doing much in the mind at all, which is a great avenue for a lot of people too, because maybe they don't realize that. And also, people don't want to talk about their trauma. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wakes up and says, you know what, let's talk about the worst day of my life over and over again, or the worst 100 days of my life, or whatever it is.
Exactly.
But then learning how to do that was just, and then able to show other people how to do that.
Yes, because the way that trauma affects the brain is just the same as getting hit over the head or getting a concussion. I mean, it causes a damage to that part of the brain, the memories. And so tell us a little bit about how body movement and work in the body works.
Yeah, so your nervous system is wired like branches of a tree. And then when you experience a traumatic event, those branches get pruned. But those branches can regrow. And so that's how we process it in the body. And, so this can work as a complement to talk therapy, or it can be done without talk therapy at all. And so there's different types of movement that are more like therapeutic for depending on where you're at, right? So like if you're like angry, right? Or anxious, like you need to be doing more like active type movements, right? So like a slow yoga class is going to make you insane. And so that's what I was at, right? And so my husband was like super into yoga, and he was trying to get me to go. And I'm like, nothing sounds worse to me than sitting alone on my mat for 60 minutes. Like, and he would drag me, and I hated it. So I did hot yoga, and that was much more dynamic and really more challenging. And I was able to process a lot in a hot studio, doing it in a more dynamic fashion. And now I've processed enough to where I can do yoga more slowly. But maybe if like you're depressed, or maybe you've got some kind of like physical ailment, like, bad knees or bad back, something that would prohibit you from doing something more dynamic, something slower is helpful too. And then, but once you kind of figure that out, you're able to realize that once those neural pathways start growing again, now you have the capacity to process it through the mind. So like maybe before you didn't have the words, to accurately say, what was happening, but now you can say it, and you can even say it in a way and have a plan. It's like, like the analogy I like to use is like if like you're sick, right? Like if you, let's say if you got COVID or something, because COVID kind of knocks people out.
Oh, yeah.
Takes the wind out of you, right? And like you kind of like maybe down for the count for a month. You're just exhausted. You're not getting out of bed. You know, that's what it's like in the trauma brain, right? Like you just can't do anything. You just have to wait until the body heals up. And so, like with COVID, you're probably sleeping, but you know, what we're doing is we're kind of building that muscle. So it's like a bicep, right? Like if I'm trying to build a bigger bicep, you build a bigger bicep by moving your biceps, you know? And so you got to just do that movement repeatedly. And now once you have a bigger bicep, you can lift heavier things. And so once you've processed this trauma through the body, through yoga and some different like breathing techniques, maybe meditation is helpful to you too, then you're like, oh, I guess I can lift heavier things. And you're able to process information easier. So now I can like find solutions to problems exponentially faster, to where before I couldn't, right? Like if you can kind of get paralyzed in your trauma, right?
Yes.
Where you're like, you're just stuck, you know, like you're just sitting and you're like, I used to be able to do this task, but now I can't, you know, and I used to be able to do this task quickly, and now I can't. And I don't understand why I can't, because you're not the same person that you don't feel like you're the same person that you were before. But now once you kind of built that bicep, you're like, oh, no, okay, now I can do it.
So thoughts are like weights.
Yeah.
I don't know why that just the whole thing. It's like the brain was like this muscle.
Yeah.
And it had arms and legs, and it was in the gym, and trauma came and you pulled the muscle.
Yeah.
And so we're not going to that side of the gym where the weights are until we get some healing over here at the hospital.
Right.
So that's interesting. And so how do you suggest that people work even in their eating habits? Like what are good ways to work with the body work that you do in that?
Yeah. I mean, eating obviously is very crucial too. So like watching what you eat and how it makes your body feel, right? So people who eat maybe a lot of sweet things might do that because they maybe lack love, right? There's a correlation between sweet and love, and then there's this correlation between salty and like anger. So like if you're using like food to cope, maybe just noticing what you're eating. I always say notice how it makes you feel, right? Because you want your body to perform optimally. And so some people need more protein, some people need more veggies. So you've got to, and some people, fasting is very beneficial, but for some people it's not. You know, some people have got much quicker metabolism, so they need to eat. You know, like my husband's in that category. Like if any of you study like Ayurveda, like if you're a Pitta, you know, in that category, you need to be eating all day. You need to be cruising. You need to have some nuts. You need to have some.
When I was
something.
running track in college, I had to almost quadruple the amount of calories that I was bringing in just to maintain my weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like, but fasting agrees with me. So like my brain actually performs optimally when I'm in a fasted state. So like, so I can not eat until maybe 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon, but I don't feel tired, you know, like I'm still like performing my best.
Yeah.
But other people could not do that, right? Like maybe you couldn't do that. You got to keep fueling.
I can fast for 10 minutes.
Yeah. but there's nothing wrong with that, but recognizing that in yourself, because I feel like in our culture, there's only 500 million diets to pick from, right? And they all work. They all quote unquote work, and they all do work, but they don't work for everybody. So like really noticing like what your constitution, and paying attention, right? And and giving yourself, if ice cream or donuts is your like guilty pleasure,
I like ice cream,
but
non-dairy, but it's ice cream.
Yeah, but noticing like for me, if I love ice cream too, but I notice like if I have it maybe at a certain time of day, my body processes it better, so I'm still able. I'm not like going to take a nap,
right? So
like if I've done like a workout and I want ice cream, I'll probably have ice cream within like maybe 3 hours after that workout. And I just notice how it's like, okay, my body like processed it like I ate a salad. It just processed it nice and easy, and then I'm still like awake and alive and able to do the things I wanted to do without letting that happy snack.
That takes me to reminds me, we started watching a series about You Are What You Eat, I think it's called, on Netflix, and they're doing a study on twins, like 21 sets of twins. Is that the right way to say it? Sets of twins.
Sets of twins, yes.
21 different sets of twins, all different walks of life, all different areas. And each twin does not get to choose, but one has to do a vegan lifestyle and the other has to do an omnivore diet lifestyle for like 8 weeks. And they
Yes.
provide the food and they show what happens.
Well, 4 weeks on that, and then the
Where they
other
feed
4
them.
weeks they're left on their own
Oh, okay.
to see if they can stick with it.
Okay.
Basically.
And it's interesting the changes because it was explaining genetics and how similar twins are. You know, the genetic makeup is almost identical in most twins, but just changing out the way that they ate changed their lives. It was like, and the way that they exercise. So they had everyone they had specialists for the gym, bodybuilding, nutritionists, plant-based nutritionists, omnivore nutritionists. They even checked the libido of the specimens, the subjects, the specimens. I like to use big words that I didn't mean to use. But the subjects they did test how it affected their sexuality and everything. And so we're not finished it, but you should check it out.
Yeah,
It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's
Angel
really
Hill
good.
said she finished it, and it's fascinating.
Is it? Oh, I
Yes.
can't wait. We're
So-
gonna binge watch tonight. Binge watch tonight. Hey, Angel. And so yeah, I'm excited to tell people more about where is Sanford Yoga and Community Center located?
It is in downtown, they call it Jonesboro in Sanford, but it's at 126 West Main Street. Right next door to where we're at.
She's our neighbor. Our neighbor is better than yours. So, I'm so excited. And so, how did you find that reaching Sanford? How long have you been there?
I took over the yoga studio in 2020. So I had just gotten, fired, right, from Special Operations Command, and I had just started my nonprofit, Combat Sexual Assault. And there's 2 arms of combat sexual assault. One of them is where we're helping address our service members' legal needs for being retaliated against for reporting, but then the other half is helping their healing. And so I always knew that yoga was going to be a part of that, and I was actually just going to contract the previous owners to do that for us. But they announced right before COVID in January of 2020, they announced that they were closing. So one of them was a military spouse. She was PCSing and moving to another state, and the other one had just gotten into a divorce, so that they were just kind of like, it was too much, and they were going to close.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was the only yoga studio in town, and I was like, oh man, just got to take this over. So I talked to my husband, and we were like, trying to decide if that's what we're going to do, and so we took it over while I was still kind of like standing up my nonprofit, right?
Yeah.
And so then we were doing the transition between January and March of 2020, and then of course COVID hit, and our first day owning the place was April 1st, 2020. But again, being stubborn, right? Like
Literally right when everything
it was
shutting
just
down.
happening.
Standing in business, standing on business.
Yeah, but so what we did here locally, is Sanford. It used to be called Sanford Yoga, and when we took it over, we changed the name to Sanford Yoga and Community Center. And the idea was to just bring more to the community, whatever that looked like, right? Because Sanford is like a wasteland for a lot of things. Like it's growing and getting better, but but it just doesn't have a lot of stuff. So we were going to offer art classes for kids, martial arts, sound healing, just if you could think of it, we got the space, let's do it. Like if you can think of it and we can staff it, let's do it. And nothing was off the table. And so that's what we did. We painted this huge mural on the inside of the studio. The kids painted it.
Nice. It's beautiful.
We have like belly dancing, and it's all about, we call it a veteran-owned trauma-informed space, inclusive space. So everything we do, the basis of it is that it is trauma-informed. And then the other curveball that the universe kind of threw us as we were kind of going through it is that also during COVID, our kid came out as trans. And so when that happened, he was very, very depressed, right? So like, in my opinion, I don't know that he knew he was trans until he hit puberty, right? So like his sex assigned at birth was female, and I don't think he thought of himself as a girl or a boy, just as a kid, right?
Yeah.
And then when he started growing like breasts and getting his period, he was like, it was like a significant emotional event, right? Like what what is this? And then also getting pulled out of school because of COVID, he basically just like stayed in bed. And so I was trying to find an outlet for him to kind of like meet other kids like him so that, to get him out of this kind of funk that he was in. So we ended up starting an LGBTQ resource center at Sanford and Yoga and Community Center, but it started really just on Wednesdays. We did an LGBTQ kids hangout. And I was just kind of like putting out an APB to any queer kids in the area, like, come please hang out with my son. Like he's not okay. I'm trying to like your mom in it, and you're just trying to figure it out. And then the kids came, and then the adults were like, well, what do you got for us? And I was like, I don't know, let's figure it out. Wow. And then we just started kind of like building from there, like doing game nights. And then we offered like a healthcare scholarship, and we did like a lending closet where we'd collect clothing and other items to donate to people that needed it. And then we would host drag shows, so like we just kind of like just kept building as a community as people came out, right? And it just kind of turned into this. I call us the redheaded stepchildren, right? Like we're the land of misfit toys, right?
You're the mama.
Yeah, right. Obviously,
yeah, the mama. I'm telling you. Wow, what a huge load of support. Just to double back to, you said that your dad created a bubble, and when I think about a bubble, bubbles keep things in, and bubbles keep things out.
Yeah,
like the movie Fences or the play Fences. And so that dad was so overprotective that he didn't let anybody in. He didn't want anybody in that particular dramatization. So how do you feel like when you're in that space and you remember your protection or your bubble, how do you feel? How do you process making your bubble safe enough that some things can come in, but some things have to come out too?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like a work in progress, because I'm pretty guarded. You know? I get that. I get that a lot. A lot of people feel like I'm intimidating. I know you looking at me like that. Like you should know that. But yeah, I mean that's something that I'm trying to work on. I'm in a little denial about myself, because like how I like to describe it, I'm like, if you're intimidated by me, then like you must have done something wrong, because kids love me.
That's it.
Because like I teach a lot of kids classes, and the kids just love me. And I'm like, there's no child that's scared of me. Only adults. I'm like, so if you're, but yeah, it is a challenge, right?
They're threatened by your strength.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
So that's definitely nothing to be ashamed of. And I always like to say, because I've been in similar situations, and my comeback to that is, that seems like that's a you problem.
Yeah.
Not a me problem.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be me. And you being you, obviously, and I'm sure, whether you realize it or not, I'm sure that you have helped a lot of people along your journey.
Yes.
And it's very important, that you hear that, because, I'm going to just guess that you have some folks out there that are thanking you for intervening or coming into their lives, whether it was just for a brief moment, finding resources for them, or just giving them that word that they needed to hear. So, you can take that with you and say that, hey, you can be afraid of me, but I'm going to help you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of it is, I feel like for me personally, I was raised our only child. I have a brother, but we only have the same dad. So we weren't raised as siblings in one house. He lived with his mom, I lived with my mom, and we spent weekends and special occasions together. So I'm my mom's only child. Yeah. Raised that way. Spoiled rotten. I promise you. In the bubble, overprotective. So you can do whatever you want, little girl, but you can't do it outside of this house. So it was that type of situation. And so I picked up the need to be a people pleaser and to save people that were in trouble. A lot of my friends, some of them had experienced some childhood abuse or whatever they were going through as children in trauma. And my mother had experienced it as a child, and that was why she was the way she was. So I developed this ability to try to heal and help people all the time. Even my mom, right? Because she dealt with some mental health, some mental illness. And so discernment is so important because you can't help everybody. You have to know who's yours to help. Yeah. And that's really hard. How do you process when there's somebody that comes into your circle and you can give them a seed and let them go? How do you process and know when to let them go or to say, no, 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 you need to stay here a little while longer?
I actually just let them all go. If that, and I know that sounds weird, and that's the other thing. Like I tell people when they're wanting to do this work, is a lot of them are trying to do the work to heal themselves, right? But that's not like when people ask me why, I get a question like, why do you do what you do? And I'm like, I do it actually for me, because I'm actually healing myself. I'm always just working on myself. You're collateral damage. You're in a sense,
Sure.
the collateral damage though is that you're being healed by being in my
healed by
presence
being
because you're watching me do
Heal.
it. And when I do it, then you can do it. And so, and I started that, early with my siblings, so like, in the middle of 5 and only I only have one sibling that's still living. And so like we were, as we were trying to like get out of outside of Chicago, like I was just, and I guess that's another reason why I joined the Army too. It was kind of like to show my brother, at least my younger two, that what was possible.
Yeah.
Like I knew I couldn't save the older two, so I was like, okay, maybe I can save the other two, but I'm going to save them by doing it because they're also just as stubborn as I am. Right. So it's like, I did it, right? Like I joined the Army, I got out of the Army, I went to law school. I'm like, because there are like 100 excuses on why they can't do it. I'm like, we came from the same. I'm like, I'll tell you, like, I'm like, if I could do it, you can do it. And, they experienced abuse. I'm like, yep, check, Roger, me too. I'm like, but look what I did. You know what I mean? Like, I aggressively healed myself. Like, and it was hard and it was messy. And they were a part of it though. Like they saw it. And so now they're, they see it and it's like, and so that's how I do it with my clients, right? Or the people that I help. Like, I'm not actually trying to fix you. I'm going to like give you the map. I'm going to give the map to anybody who wants the map. You got to want the map though, because this is not for the faint of heart, right? Like this is just not, like, it's just not like healing from trauma of any kind is not for the faint of heart. Like you have to want to. It's like a 12-step program, but just for a different ailment, right? Like it's you got to want it. And then if you want it, then you're in. And also, I jokingly refer to it as the Lindsay program, because at some point, if you're on the Lindsay program, you're gonna be mad at Lindsay and you're gonna leave.
It sounds like a like a book.
It's a hard program, but and basically everybody leaves, right? But it's good though, because then once they leave, the way my program is set up, if you will, is we're doing the stuff. Right. But at the end, when they're mad and they leave, then they're sick of it and they go do it on their own. They know that it was always them. Does that make sense?
You prepare them without them knowing that they're prepared. Now they're going out and doing it on their own. The way that you would do it.
Right. Yeah. Because part of what I do is I give them everything that they want.
Yes.
Right. And so then when they get everything that they want and then they fail, then the only person they have to look at is them. So it's not, and I'm not trying to be mean about it when I do it, but it's like it's very strategic. It's like, oh, you don't have a place to live, now you do. Oh, you don't have food, now you do. Oh, you what do you need? Now you got it. And then they still fail.
All of their excuses.
That's right.
Yes.
Wow, that's
tough. It's a hard program. My sister will tell you she's a graduate, but she's mad as hell. I mean, she was mad, like she didn't talk to me for like 2 years.
Because she couldn't understand.
But she did it. She did the program, and then she got,
You got to go with that name, the Lindsay program.
The Lindsay program.
And I'm going to even make it old school. The LP, the long play.
Yeah, I like that.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah, it's a long plan. There's so many ways you can go with that, because recovering from any trauma is not something that you just look at and go, "Oh, I'm recovered."
Oh yeah,
it's not as quick and easy as that. It is you have to be in it for the long haul, because, like you say, you have to first admit that it is something that traumatized you. You have to come to grips with it.
You got to face it.
You have to face it face to face before you can move on. Because if you're constantly denying it, you're running from it. You're just going in that circle,
chasing your tail.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you use the word recovery, I think about people usually think about addiction and recovering from addictions. I think that it's not just substance abuse when you talk about recovering from trauma. it all works together. You can become addicted to the behavior. You could become addicted to the trauma thought pattern. And it becomes your norm. Kirk Franklin did a special and he said, how do I feel healed? How do I respond to being whole? Like, I've been hurt and traumatized for so long. This don't feel right.
Right. And that's why a lot of people don't, right? Because it's a new sense, it's a whole new sensation, and that's scary.
It is.
Right? Because at least with the trauma, you're used to it. And that's actually why people stay in violent relationships quite often, right? Like, nobody likes getting beat, you know? But they've never felt not getting beat. And so that's just as scary, you know? And also being sober, right? Like, that's hard too, right? Like, because then you got to feel, right? Like, because really, if we're being honest, that's why people abuse substances. It's because they experience a trauma of some kind, and they're trying to self-soothe, right? In some way, right? Like, they're too anxious, they're too depressed, they're too something, so they're taking a substance to help themselves not feel that. Because who wants to feel that? But it's sitting in it, right? And it's hard and it's messy, but what I like to say is that rock bottom is for everybody. And that's the other thing I tell my clients when they come see me. Like I see them on their worst day, and what I tell them is, like, I know you feel bad, but I'm secretly hoping you feel worse, because if you feel just a little bit worse, then you're gonna be done. You're not fed up yet. I know you think you are, but you know they're not quite fed up yet. So I'm like, just feel a little bit worse, and then we're gonna hit the rock bottom, and then we're gonna go together. We'll go in the Lindsay program. You're gonna like it at first, and you'd be mad at me, but then you're gonna go off, and then you're gonna survive. You're gonna have all
like
the
a
tools.
bungee jump.
Yeah.
Which I would never ever.
Which you can survive because you got a court.
We're not doing the bungee jump, but that's the first thing that popped into my head. It's just like, you're gonna let go of everything and trust. Yeah. When you've not been able to trust your whole life, or at least the majority of your life. It's the weirdest thing. You know, okay, let's take it to a lower level. You know, that fallback trust exercise that you do when you're younger. It's like, I was never able to do that. Like, it's like, no, where you at? You got me. Look, I'm a little heavy here. So, you know, it's trusting ourselves and trusting in the divine higher power that's within us, the Holy Spirit that created us to be here. And people, you know, they get mad. Why did God let that happen to me? And it's just like, why not me, right?
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. Like, when I tell people, when they say that, right, it's like you're looking at a painting, right, but your nose is right up against it, so your nose is touching the painting, and you're crying and you're mad and you're screaming at me and like, Lindsay, it's green, it's green. I'm like, I got it. You're not wrong. I'm like, but let's take a step back. Right. And then you see some other colors, right? Maybe there's some blues or some golds or whatever. And that's what it's like with people who are like, you know, why? I'm like, well, you don't know why, because your nose is pressed up against it.
Oh, that's good.
You know, so like, as we continue and as we're healing the trauma in the body, right, with the nervous system, and also, you know, blessed, they don't have the neural pathways to even take a step back, right? So we're building the bicep, you know? So that's why I always say, start with the body, especially with people who are mad and upset and, you know, raging because something bad happened to them. I mean, they're not wrong, you know, like, something bad did happen. It absolutely was bad, and it absolutely happened. But let's build that bicep, and then
I feel you.
And then you can take a step back, and you can be like, oh, you know, because it's not great that I've lost 3 siblings, right, and a dad, and all these other things, right? It's not great, right? But as you kind of step back, you're kind of like, oh, you know, now I'm fighting the Proud Boys, the KKK, Delta Force, USAC, the Pentagon. I mean, like, when we were starting getting protested by, like, the KKK and the Proud Boys, you know, here in Sanford, the first thing I said was, take a number, man. Like, get in line. Like, the line is long for people that don't like me. Like, I just saw you. Like,
and we followed that whole thing. And then when we were putting this show together, it clicked in us. We were like, wait a minute, we're having her as our guest on the anniversary of
January the 6th.
I saw that too. I was like,
I was like, babe, are we about to get canceled?
We didn't.
no, that's right. We're about to go viral, right?
We didn't intentionally go out, but it was just like wow. And for those who don't know, I mean, you put on some events here in Sanford that, and I have a real problem calling them Proud Boys because they hide behind so many coverings, and actually even the clothing company of the shirts that they wear stopped making those shirts because they didn't want their company to be associated with them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a great move. I read that article. I'm like, way to go. But for them to do what they did, and I guess it's better to come from you. Go ahead and explain what happened.
Yeah, I mean, so what they do is a lot more commonplace now, I'd say, but I feel like we were one of their first places that they stood down on. And I feel like I don't know why they picked us, but I feel like they thought we were an easy target, right? Like we're in Sanford. We got this crazy woman doing stuff. And they just showed up. God, I think it was about 20 of them. And to protest a drag show or a drag brunch that we were putting on. And they just were like pushing and picking fights and screaming at everybody that was coming in, but they were really targeting the kids.
That's
right?
scary.
So their position is that they're there to protect the children, but it was the children that they were yelling at as they were coming in. So this one, the first one that we did where we had like a huge turnout by the Proud Boys was on October 30th. So we were having like a Halloween themed, like a kid-friendly Halloween themed drag brunch. So the performers were dressed as like Bette Midler from Hocus Pocus, right? And Beetlejuice, and Captain Hook. So it was like a real like fun,
It was
like a Halloween
party,
upbeat, party. And, I remember we had this kid coming in dressed as Wonder Woman, and we're just, in there, and she just kind of looks terrified as she's getting screamed at as they're coming in. But there's a great picture if you Google it. It's I think it was in a lot of other publications, but there's a picture of a guy standing in a tutu in front of the Proud Boys, just like this, like protect him. And that's actually my brother. So that was in October, and he died in December of that same year. So it was just and so now we wear that tutu. Somebody has to wear that tutu at every event we do now, because it's like. Because we got to keep Jimmy. His name is Jimmy, but we call him Uncle Jimmy because he's got a lot of nieces and nephews, and so he's just like wherever he goes, he's Uncle Jimmy. Bringing Uncle Jimmy around. But yes. Anyway, back to the question. The Proud Boys aren't so proud, and we get death threats and things like that. We had one person convicted of those death threats, but the justice system doesn't even work for the attorney, if you will, right? So, his punishment was...
That's a statement. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You got to pause right there.
Yeah. No.
The justice system doesn't even work for an attorney.
Yeah. So, I mean, because I'm testifying, right? Like, I'm on the stand. I'm the witness. I'm testifying. Everybody in the courtroom knows I'm an attorney. They know what I do for a living. They know that I represent sexual assault victims. They know. Everybody knows. From the judge to the prosecutor to the defense attorney. And... his punishment was court costs.
Are you kidding?
Wow.
It was court costs. So he just literally just left. Like he left the courtroom that day with me. I mean, thank God the bailiff was like walking me to my car. I mean, I'm pretty fiery, so I was like, I'm not even worried about. I
know you're not.
Because I don't want to say I'm not worried about it, but like, I just. I got kind of my blinders on in a sense. I'm like, I'm divinely protected. I'm divinely protected. Just keep it moving. Like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it for as long as I can. And then I feel like I'm going to live for a minute. Like, I feel like God's got me a little bit, like, and if he doesn't, if he doesn't, then he doesn't. Then it is what it is. I'm too stubborn to not do it.
Well, we called you. I saw that you were doing a podcast called The Freedom Sister.
Oh yeah. I did that a while back. Yeah.
And so I had to add that in our promotion because you have got to be the freest person I've ever met.
Oh, thanks.
When you say that everything that you've gone through and still, have to deal with on a daily basis, between your mind and yourself, you've gotten in the face of yourself. and you learned how to get free from yourself and your thoughts and your trauma, and turn around and you got to fight for freedom for so many people. What is freedom to you?
It's everybody being their most authentic self, and that's my long game, because all these are like littler problems, if you will, like the Proud Boys, the littler, these are, me fussing at you, sock. The long game is, in my opinion, the reason why you haven't made strides, with any minority group, whether it be women, African Americans, the LGBT community, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, is because that minority group, doesn't understand how powerful that they are. Like, because nobody is kicking a puppy, right? Because if you're a big, strong human, you don't need to kick a puppy because you're more powerful than the puppy.
Unless it's a pit bull.
Well, pit bull, you know what I'm saying? But
sweet.
Somebody, the majority, only picks on a minority because they know that that the minority is stronger than them. Because otherwise, why would you do it? Right? So then the minority group believes, or may start to believe over time, may believe that lie, right? That they're not powerful. Yeah. So now it's like, just drawing that out. Like, how can I draw that out every day? And I draw that out by being powerful myself, right? Like, just showing it. But being powerful is being vulnerable, and it's being sad and scared, but it's showing up, right? Like, it's just showing up. Like most days I'm just like, all right, this is what we're doing today. Just another Tuesday, I suppose, right? Like, you just get up and you do it. And so that's the long game for me, is like trying to find as many people that are up for the Lindsay program, if you will, and just showing them how powerful they are, and then convincing them to be their most authentic self as loudly as they can. Right? And that can be introverted, and if that's what they are, but like, how can you be the most of you? Because that's the magic. And then once you do that, then we are actually the majority, right? All the minority populations are actually the majority. The majority, right? Because the people in power are actually the minority.
And they know that, and that's why they separate us.
That's right. And it's like as Dr. King said, everybody said, the power's with the people. The power's with the people. We just have to remind all of us that that's where it's at, right?
And not that I want to, touch a nerve, but I believe I found that photo that you were referring to.
Oh, yeah, no, you can show it.
I believe, is that it right there?
Is it Tutu? Oh, I don't see it. Yep, that's the one. That's Jimmy.
That's him? Okay. I felt like we had to share that, in his honor. And just to show, like I say, look at the coverages on their faces. And it's amazing that they're dressed in either tactical gear or this, that, and the other. But for the majority, like you say, for them to be confronting kids, and you claim that you are trying to help them, but here you are terrifying, and like I say, I've never called them really the Proud Boys. I always referred to them as the Punk Boys.
Oh, see, I call them the Peanut Butters.
Okay.
Hey, that's what I call them at the house. I don't call them the Proud Boys at the house. They're just the Peanut Butters. They're just at home licking peanut butter.
And since it is January 6th, they would be like the Keystone Cops of this generation. Oh, because how do you go to do something illegal at the Capitol? And there's this one main picture that I see where this guy is proudly standing there with his work ID hanging out on the outside of a hoodie. First off, he's wearing a hoodie, and it's like he wanted to get fired or to just brag, and he's got his work ID right here. And he got fired, obviously. But it's like the thought process among those folks who think that they're fighting for the right thing, but I could go on and on about that. I'm not going to do it, but
She said earlier, ignorance is bliss, right?
Yes.
When you think you know it all, and you think it's kind of like some other leaders that we have seen.
God bless America. God bless America.
And I'm going to wrap that up with, kudos to you for what you do. Once again, I can't say this enough, that you have actually, done some things that most people probably would be a little apprehensive about doing. You know, when they hear about groups like the Proud Boys or taking on groups like the Deltas, the Delta Force or Special Ops and things like that, those are areas where the average person would be like, oh, never mind. You know what I mean? And just kind of be defeated before they even begin to fight. And, you know, you didn't look at it that way. You looked at it as there's something that's wrong. There's something that, like you say, what am I doing about it? You know, you are doing something about it, and that is definitely to be applauded. I don't know if this is going to... I don't know if that goes out on the air, so...
Well, I got to take it to the word. 1 can chase 1,000, 2 can chase 10,000, and so on and so forth. So one voice can be many voices if we just listen, right? Yeah. If we listen and take that Lindsay program and find strength. You are such a sower of love. Oh, most of all, not only does the red, you just look like the queen of love. And I just thank you so much for coming on our show tonight. If there's any other nuggets that you would want to share with the community tonight, please, this is your platform to do that.
Yeah, I would love to just tell people that you can always start where you are. And there's never something too small that you can do, you know, because I feel like sometimes when people look at me, they're like, I could never do that. And you may not be able to. And that's, but we need people to do all the things. But what I need everyone to do is to heal, you know, because nobody is healed. Not even I'm healed, you know, like it's still a continuous process that I'm working on still. But you can't help but help people by healing yourself. Like it's collateral damage. Everyone will be collateral damage in your, I shouldn't use the word damage, you know, but they're going to be healed because you healed yourself. So that's what I would encourage people to do. Like whatever you can do to heal yourself, whether it may even be taking a nap. But you only need 1 minute a day to start. Right, like everybody can find 1 minute. Lock yourself in the bathroom if you got kids banging on the door. But for 1 minute, you know, you know, take a couple deep breaths. Say something nice about yourself to yourself, and maybe that's all you got that day. But that's okay.
What a nurturing word. It speaks to me personally because I personally am healing from a surgery right now in a very nurturing area of my body. And so with the stitches there, I don't even feel them as we're talking. So it's working.
Oh, good. Hey.
It's working. And I just thank God for your life and appreciate what your work in this community. And do you have any projects coming up? What did you write any books yet?
No, I haven't written a book, but
so because we'll be looking out for the Lindsay program book. I mean, whatever you call it.
Yeah. As if I couldn't have my hands in enough stuff. My next big project is we're going to be doing yoga in jails, and so
wow,
I couldn't be more excited. Like they can't get me in there quick enough. I'm like y'all
here.
So. Yeah, in Butner. We're going to start up in Butner, hopefully in February.
I might be able to connect you with some folks that could help you out with that as well. I mean, I'm assuming you're already in.
Yeah,
Butner,
she is the plug.
Yeah.
I
will take. I'll take all the good, whatever you got. But
I don't know if you know Leon Jackson.
Oh yeah, I sit on his board.
Oh, okay.
I told you she was the plug.
Never mind. Greg Singleton.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We always end up in these awesome rooms.
No worries.
Even in this room tonight, Angel Mills is another powerhouse in the community.
Hey, Angel,
shameless plug. We got to get her on the show. We got to get her on the show too. But yeah, we sit in rooms with amazing people.
We got to get her whole family on the show. Her, Lucy, her daughter, just the whole family needs to come on
as soon as possible. Call me. Yeah, so I just love the way our community is coming together. Our last show of 2023, we talked about how Sanford is coming together. It's a slow walk. It's a slow walk, but it is amazing that a town that is very often one-sided or cliquey, or if you're not one of us, or in this family, or at this church, or in this organization, this fraternity, sorority, whatever you want to call it, if you're not a part of a certain group, they don't support outside of their groups.
Yeah.
when we first got here.
Oh, you're not wrong.
2009. So we're seeing people like you and Angel and Leon and Greg are chipping away at, and Pamela Glover are
Yes.
chipping away at the bubble.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah,
that was good.
Figure it out. They're gonna figure it out. I ain't worried about it, because Sanford is gonna be. I didn't even want to change Sanford, if I'm being honest. Like I came Sanford because it was in the middle, and also to be anonymous in a sense.
Sure.
So I could do everything else.
Yeah.
And also like all the stuff I do on the national stage, I could be anonymous in Sanford.
Yeah.
And not have to worry about all the other stuff. But then. God had
will get
other
exposed in
plans.
Sanford.
So
Sure.
now I'm taking over Sanford. But
She casually said
yeah,
that.
but it's gonna happen. But I see it. But I see it because even I'm getting in rooms, and it's weird what the hair does. Like
It's a head turner.
people, I get treated differently when I'm in rooms now with the red hair as opposed to the blonde hair. But I get treated better, which is I thought was weird. But
It's attractive.
They're
We have
like,
so
okay.
many bullheaded people.
yeah.
It's like Toro, I'm here. Well, look at me.
You go through two different extremes, like she said. With the blonde hair, they think of you as one way, as not being capable, or as and then with the red hair, they're like flame on.
Yeah.
You're like,
It's for real because when I first came to Sanford, I started working in a corporate hair salon, J.C. Penney, when it was still in River
Yeah.
Birch. And so I wore this exact same color streaked in the front of my hair, and it was just like, I know. And I was just like, okay, let me just wear my hair black now. And under this wig, honey, there are dreadlocks. So
Nice.
I'm free.
Nice.
But it was a Mary Kay night.
That's right. You be whoever you want to be, whenever you want to be.
Thank you for reinforcing
Yeah.
that tonight. Be your authentic self
yes.
and go hard with
Yeah.
it. Go hard with it. So I love this. Wow. There's nothing else to say.
There's nothing else to say.
I don't know what else to
We
say.
definitely appreciate your patience at the start of the show.
Oh yeah.
We've actually been here since what? 10 o'clock?
10 o'clock this
10:30?
morning.
Oh, my
10:30
goodness.
This morning. Yeah. We're going hard because
Yeah, you are.
we're nipping away at the bubble, just like you said. And it's funny because a lot of the conversation that we're having now, you had no idea that some of the testimonials of the Mary Kay sales beauty consultants, the ones that are high earning, there's a young lady named Chelsea, and she started at 19 years old, and at 29 years old, she's just like $1 million mommy.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah, powerhouse. But her story was we would say she got it out the mud. She came from nothing. She talked about how she grew up being the child of a family that looked forward to tax returns to ball out or to get a car. She's like, when she got her first Mary Kay car, she was the trendsetter. She was the breaker of the
generational curses or whatever.
Yeah. So it's like,
Yeah.
this is amazing. She's authentically herself. And she said she was dealing with, she had been diagnosed with ADD and depression. And she was like, I'm taking on that. But she's got like hundreds of people under her. And she's a baby.
I love that though.
$1 million baby.
I love it. Keep getting after it. Because who knows what's she going to do in 10 more years? If she did that in 10, can you imagine where she's going to be in another 10? She's going to take over Sanford. Forget about it.
Well, she's in Virginia. She's in Virginia. I'm going to be the Mary Kay.
All right, there you go.
Well, we just love you. And if there's anything that we can do here at Lee County Cultural Arts, because our office is here in this, so we're neighbors.
Oh, yeah. Just
We're here
whatever.
to stay,
Yeah.
and we'll be calling you
for
again.
sure, yeah.
We'll be referring people. And one day I'm going to get over there and do some yoga. And not just yogurt. Non-dairy, that is. But it's amazing. I just love it. I don't know what else to say. This has been so fulfilling to talk to you tonight. And you have any final words?
I don't have anything else to say. Just
So-
like you, I mean, this has been another. It's been an inspiring show. It's been definitely real, and we definitely appreciate you coming in and sharing your. I don't want to call it a testimony so much as just your survival story, because no matter what, You are a survivor. You survived. You will continue to thrive, and that is, I guess, what it's all about. You know, this life will throw curveballs at us one minute, a slider the next, and then come right with about 5 or 6 fastballs. And you have to change up and adapt and keep moving on and just keep swinging for the fences. Yes, I'm all about sports analogies right now.
And thank you for your authenticity and your freedom, your free heart.
Yes.
Thank you for your love in this community because it's needed. It's necessary. Keep doing what you do, girl.
Oh, well,
You the
thanks for
bomb.
having me on, giving me a mouthpiece. I appreciate you guys.
Huggers.
And thank you, Sister Tanette. Tanette Haddon says love.
Oh,
Thank you for checking us
that's
out.
my director. Hey, yes. She's
Thank
the
you.
witness.
Thank you once again for coming.
And thank you all for watching. Thank you for our guests. Thank you, NC Studios, for providing this platform for us to do our show. And anyone that wants to come on our show or be a part of what we're doing, you can email us at ChynaGroove@outlook.com. That's ChynaGroove show SHOW. I can spell a little bit at outlook.com. We want to hear from you. We want you to love on the community through what you do. Come on and showcase your talent and your business. And this is the platform for all things positive and united right here in Sanford and abroad. Doesn't matter. Come on virtually if you need to. We love you, and that's the groove.
Yes. And it's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap, it's a wrap, it's a wrap, it's a wrap. It's a wrap, it's a wrap, it's a wrap. It's a wrap, it's a wrap, it's a wrap. It's a wrap, it's a wrap, it's a wrap. It's a wrap, it's a wrap, it's a wrap. It's a wrap, it's a wrap, it's a wrap. It's a wrap, it's a wrap, it's a wrap. It's a wrap, it's a wrap, it's a wrap. It's a wrap, it's a wrap, it's a wrap, it's a wrap. It's a wrap, it's a wrap, it's a wrap.